Hi friends, welcome back to the Knits by Lillian podcast. This is a knitting podcast where we talk all about yarn, knitting, fiber arts, things that I'm working on, things that I'm designing, test knits, you name it, we discuss it if it has to do with yarn. So, grab a beverage. This is a mug, but I do have an iced coffee in here even though it is 4 degrees outside. So, grab a coffee, grab a tea, let's crack into it. Okay, so if you watch knitting podcasts, if you've watched this knitting podcast, you know there's typically an order that people go in. We're throwing that out the window because I've cast something on that I'm really excited about and I just want to crack right into that. So I was on a trip this weekend with friends who knit, okay? And friends who crochet. And so my partner was getting yarn to crochet a scarf, a multicolor scarf. And I said, excuse me, what if I mooch a little bit of all of the colors of your yarn so I can make matching mittens? So that's spiraled. That's gone downhill. It's snowballed. That's what I was looking for. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I'm so excited about this. I'm working on a pattern right now. It's mittens. They knit up real quick. So this is 1 quince wool. I'll link everything below, but I think it's like a DK sport weight. It's pretty light. I did this on 3.5 millimeter needles. That's all I had with me while we were traveling, so I did the ribbing on 3.5 as well and then really just tried to cinch it in, but I'm gonna do the second one and write it for a needle size down. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colors I think here. I alternated in a random order because they're working on the scarf at the same time, so I needed to be 1 color short at all times while they're working on the scarf. So here's what we have. This was so fun, okay? I feel like I've been doing a lot of knitting recently where I've been either trying to write up charts for a design, or I'm doing a test knit for someone else, or I'm doing a second sample of my own pattern. And not to say that I don't enjoy that too, but it's been, I don't want to say it hasn't been fun. It hasn't been as exciting, let's say. Or I've been working on these garments that I've had going for a long time and I've seen them for months and months. So I wanted something fresh. I wanted something to make me excited to knit again, and I've succeeded. So, you know me, I immediately went off the rails. We've swatched for a vest, okay? How cool would this look as a sweater vest? So I had a bunch of, what is this? I think this is Woolstock worsted, just in stash. So a couple months ago, I impulse bought, Woolstock worsted does these little like mini skein bundles. So they'll do, this is 2 of them. So I think it's like 5 colors-ish in these little bundles. And then they have colorwork patterns like on their website that you can do for, I think it was like a hat and a cowl or something. And I had dreams of making this sweater of many colors, but what I realized was that with the mini skeins, I think they're like 15 gram skeins. It's not that much yarn is the point I'm getting at. But what it's perfect for is a vest, because you only have to do the body, you don't have to do sleeves. So this darker blue at the bottom, it's all the same yarn. It's still Woolstock worsted. I have more of that in stash. So I think that's gonna be my main color for bottom ribbing, neck ribbing, and then, I don't know what you would call this, like sleeve ribbing, armhole band ribbing. And I think it's gonna tie it together really well. I wanted the color scheme to be similar, and I feel like it is. Like this reads very like 70s to me. This is like if the girl who is like, I'm a little quirky, if for her personality trait, you know what I'm talking about? Please know that I'm talking about an internet meme and not like someone I know that I hate. If that internet meme were a person, this is one of those things that like if it makes sense to you, we're gonna be so locked in. Okay, so I wanted the same kind of messy multicolor look, and I feel like we got that. My goal here is to make a pattern that you could do with scraps. I know it's advent calendar season, and I know so many people are doing advent projects, and I'm so jealous because I wish that I had gotten an advent calendar, but I don't think that far ahead, and they're so expensive. But what I do have is a ton of scrap yarn. So I was like, you know what? Make your own advent calendar set out of yarn that you already have in stash. So that was my goal here. I also cast on and off this sample last night. So here we have, this is Kelborn Woolen's Scout, also just that I had in stash. I did a sweater in this brown and I just had some left over. So the way I did this stitch pattern, not to give away all my secrets, is, well, first let's talk about the mitten construction. We've got about 2 inches of ribbing, and then for the mittens that I've done in the past, I've seen 2 different thumb types, let's say. So you've got this guy where everything's kind of flat, right? It's all in one plane. Thumb is to the side. This can be either a left or a right mitten, doesn't matter, fits the same way. I've also seen, and I think this is a little bit more in like traditional Scandinavian colorwork mittens, where it's a little bit more flat, right? So you have the mitten and then you have the thumb coming off kind of the front like this. It sounds strange if you haven't seen it, but they usually fit pretty well. Sometimes they're not the best, but most of the time they fit fine. I did the thumb off this side because I thought it would be a little bit easier to incorporate into the stitch pattern. So then increases are worked here to create this thumb, I think it's called gusset section. And then these are placed on a holder, stitches are cast on across to maintain the thumb circumference and the hand circumference. So I will say this looks kind of short and stubby, but when I blocked it, this stitch, it stretches out a lot vertically. So I did 3 row repeats here. This, as far as I know, it's not a stitch that I found in like a book. I kind of just made this up. I'm sure it exists somewhere, but I wanted a multicolor, like interesting stripe look, but I only wanted to do 1 color at a time. I'll show you on this one because it's already blocked. So I did 3 rows, and on the first row of each color, so like on this dark blue, I dipped down 2 stitches into the color below. Hopefully that makes sense. So sort of, I guess you could probably do the same thing by like slipping a stitch in the color and carrying it up. This is just what made sense to me. I'm now realizing that I did something different on this mitten. I think I dipped down 3 rows, so the gauge might be different on this one. So we'll revisit that. But I wanted the kind of jagged stitch pattern because the crochet scarf that I'm doing this to match is done with, okay, so if you crochet this will make sense, but you know how when you crochet you can do a stitch and then a chain and then a stitch, and then in the next row you can crochet into that gap, and then it kind of gives the like, do you know what I mean? I feel like you do. Okay, so I wanted to mimic that with this mitten, and I feel like we've succeeded. Like this, to me, this looks cool. Here, I'll try it on and show you. I would say I have pretty average sized hands, so I think this could fit a lot of people. It kind of is giving like 70s oven mitt, but I don't know, I kind of love it. Also, I don't think I've talked about the sweater that I have on. So this is not me leaving the mitten on to keep talking. This is the Clint Classic by Ann Bensel. I knitted this almost a year ago, probably. I think I finished it, well, maybe I finished it in like March. It is an all over, I think you would say broken rib, big oversized raglan. My sleeves are long on this guy. They come down pretty far. Kind of a big balloon sleeve pulled in by just a little bit of ribbing. I would like to knit this again in white because I think it looks so classic, and with the big wide raglan section and then the folded collar, I think it looks store-bought, which I think I just talked about this in the last video of sometimes I want things to look store-bought and sometimes I want them to look handmade, but this just looks so clean to me. The yarn I used is Pearl Soho Good Wool, and then I held it with a mohair, but I'm pretty sure the mohair was a silk alpaca mohair. I'll find out and I'll link it below. Or a Surrey alpaca, I mean to say. I typically will reach for an alpaca mohair over like a traditional one. I just find it scratchy on my neck. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is alpaca. We'll see. But I love this. I feel like these are kind of fun together. I didn't knit a Christmas sweater this year. I kind of never have. I usually December 1st start trying to gift knit everyone a garment. My family usually does Christmas like into January. So I have a little extra time to cheat on my gift knitting, but that typically falls in front of knitting myself a Christmas sweater. But now I've got this red guy, so I'm set. We're locked in here. Okay, putting all that aside to talk about something else that I cast on and have been designing since we last spoke. That pause was me remembering another whip that I finished that I don't know where it is. So we'll get back to her, but I'm so excited about this one, okay? I've like in the last week knit so much and I've single-handedly revived my love for knitting. It's been great. So this is a pattern that I'm working on currently. It's a round yoke color work. Oh yeah, that looks great on camera. Oh, okay, so let's walk through it. We've got folded collar, round yoke, typical round yoke structure. I've got short rows worked at the bottom of this color work section, so this can all start by the collar. This is just a personal pet peeve of mine, and I feel like I can't knit sweaters that don't have short rows in them. If you don't know, short rows are worked so that the back of the collar sits up a little bit higher than the front so that your collar doesn't ride up into your throat like that. It gives it that, makes it shaped to the way your body's shaped. Okay, so it irks me when round yoke patterns have short rows at the top that aren't worked into the stitch pattern, which I get it, you do what you have to do, but then what ends up happening is that you have a gap in the main color down to like an inch or so into where the color work starts on the front. So your color work starts lower on the back, if that makes sense, because you work those bald short rows first. None of that here. Someone told me this looks kind of like a jester collar because of these little spikes, and I'm kind of here for it. But I've been seeing so much knitwear inspired by nature, inspired by plants and floral designs, and I wanted to get in on it. And I think I talked about this, I can't remember. Everything just blurs together now, you know? I'm like, did I film this? Did I not film this? So I knit the Luma pullover last year by Sari Norland, which has, it's actually not really similar to this at all. It's just also two color round yoke, but she has, it's kind of like leaves and flowers going horizontally. And so I made that for my mom last year, and I wore it a couple weekends ago while I was visiting her to mooch out of her closet. Also, I didn't add any more on color work on the sleeve. But I forgot that I liked how that round yoke fit. So typically I don't go for a round yoke when I'm designing, but I thought, you know, I'm just gonna write up a chart. I have this idea, I kind of want to see it through, and my original plan was to just do leaves all the way down, but then I got, you know, to the, how many leaves did we do? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I got through like the 4th or 5th leaf. It was like, I don't know, I feel like we could jazz it up a little bit more than just leaves. So I added a flower, and I'm really happy about it. I think it looks great. This is probably the pattern that I'm most excited about ever having designed. I don't know, it's nothing too crazy. It's just two color work. It's a round yoke. This would be a great like first color work project if you've done round yokes before. But I'm so excited about it. I feel like I'm starting to find like my design style, and I feel like this really feels like me in a sweater, like my design style. Okay, that's enough rambling because we're nowhere near a test call here. I've got most of a pattern written up. I've been trying it on as I go, the blessing of top-down sweaters. And I've got most of a sleeve done here, but I want to get this blocked and see how it fits before I get anything over to a tech editor. The other thing is, I think this is going to be a pretty easy pattern for me to grade. I've started thinking about that when designing, like how will this size up and size down as I'm working on it, instead of after I have the piece done in my sample size and then trying to size it up and down to different sizes, because you can really get in a pickle there with like big cable motifs that you can't split up and stuff like that. So I feel like I've come a long way as a designer since even this time last year. I feel like I've made mistakes, certainly, and learned from them. And I'm excited for the future of my designing. And this looks so good on camera. This is, what are you? Oh, I left the note in. I'm blanking on it. It's the one I always use. It's Patagonia Merino by Juniper Moon Farms, Patagonia Merino. And I feel like I've talked about this before, but it's 100% wool, okay? And it's, my local yarn store is selling it for $15 for 382 yards. That's kind of a steal, especially if, I think for this sweater, for my size, I think I'm gonna only use 3 balls. So what's that, $45 total? That's not bad for a colorwork sweater, at least for the materials. So this is the color Seaweed, I think, and then my contrast color is, it's like the light gray one, not the beige one. Another thing, I want to do another sample of this. I want to knit a sample while I have testers doing it. And I think I want to do the like dual color monochromatic look. I know it's not monochrome if you do 2 shades of the same color. I get that. But if you do like a dark purple as the base and a light like lavender purple as the contrast, or the same with a blue, you can do dark blue for the contrast and light blue, I think that looks so chic and so cool. So I kind of want to do that for my second sample. We'll see, we'll see. Limitless opportunities here. Okay, so I think that's all I have to say about things that I've cast on. This has literally been in the last week. Is that true? Yeah, in the last week. So let's move on to some of the more productive things that I've been doing. My Lillehammer pullover is done. This was a test knit, is a test knit for Ellis knitwear. And I'm obsessed with this. I mean, come on. This is probably some of the cleanest color work I think I've ever done. So this is cast on and worked bottom up. Sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. So this is cast on and worked bottom up. And before you say, oh boo, bottom up, it's so that all the color work can be done in the round, okay? So you knit this basically as a big tube, add steek bridges for the sleeves, which is basically just a couple additional stitches. So steeking is when you cut your knitting vertically to make a hole, an armhole for these sleeves. So you add a couple stitches here for the steek, and then same for the collar. So it's worked all as a tube. You do your decreases, the collar's kind of pulled in like this, and then you steek here and add a folded collar. I cannot wait to wear this. This is a heavy, oversized, boxy, this feels like a jumper, not a sweater, Scandinavian color work. So this designer, this pattern is going to really be released December 20th. So it should be in like a week. And they've also done an additional like sister pattern where the construction is super similar, still bottom up, color work, full body, but the color work itself is totally different. So check out their Instagram, I'll link everything below, because the patterns are just so cool and it was a lovely knit. If you've not done a lot of color work and you've never done like a full color work sweater, this is a great introduction because like I said, it's steeked, so everything's worked in the round compared to, I knit that porcelain sweater last year, which I've talked about a couple times on here, and everybody raves about it. I really like the pattern. However, it's a drop shoulder. So it's one of those where you knit like a trapezoid for the back, flat, and then you work your shoulders, you pick up along the shoulders, knit for the front flat, and then under the arms you join, and that's when you start in the round. I really like that construction. I feel like it fits my body really well. However, you do have to work color work flat. I don't have a problem with that, but I've also knit a pretty fair amount of color work at this point in my knitting life. So if you haven't, it can be daunting to knit flat just because you're purling and you're doing color work. It can be a lot. So if you want to avoid that, something like this guy is perfect. This is reminding me of something I meant to say about the mitten earlier. I think I established this, but I didn't say it that clearly. Even though it looks like the colors overlap on this mitten, you're only working one color at a time. So in order to get that look and you're dipping down into the row below, you're still knitting with only one color at a time. I just felt like that was important to mention. So this pattern has been, or this sweater has been on my needles since I think September. And she really graciously gave the test knitters a long time for this test knit, which is great. It's a big pattern. It's a lot of color work. It's not fast, but I typically, even if I'm doing a test knit that is long, I'll try and crank it out. And so I don't usually have something on my needles for months like this unless I've abandoned it and just totally given up. So it was kind of nice and meditative to have this sweater that I could keep coming back to for so long. She's seen me through many months, and now I get to wear her in the cold season. I think I talked about this last time too. How many times can I say I think I talked about this last time? But this is gonna be an outer layer for cross-country skiing, and I can't wait. I think I'm gonna look so cool with my little like ski poles out there in this big sweater. Also, I'm a little all over the place today, but let's be real, what am I not? I have been making videos for this channel for 1 year. It's just past our 1 year Knitstagram, KnitTube anniversary, which is so exciting. It's crazy because it feels like I just started this, but also it feels like we've been doing this forever. So if you've been following along since the beginning, thank you. It's kind of surreal. It's kind of crazy. Okay, I just remembered one more whip that I want to show you. Okay, and by whip, I did mean fully finished object. We talked about this last time, but my Copenhagen cardigan is done. I wore it all weekend. It's just really classic. Black cardigan, stockinette, not a ton to say. But what I did want to show you is I found these little square buttons at my yarn shop, my local yarn shop, and I thought they were so fun. I just love that. I think it's such a fun detail. I also forgot to make a buttonhole on this button band. So this button band is worked as the body is worked. And let me see if I can find where it is. So these buttonholes are pretty small. They're like 1 stitch. So in between these guys, I added another buttonhole, but I didn't cut my yarn. And this is a cheat that I learned for really tiny buttonholes. So I took a black thread, like just embroidery thread, and I picked the stitch that I wanted my buttonhole to be between. And then I basically, I'm trying to figure out how I can illustrate this. Pretend this is our stitch, okay? So I pushed it apart with pins, held it apart to the size I wanted. Knitwear is stretchy. You can really manipulate it more than you think, I think. And then I stitched into the hole and around and anchored into the yarn around a bunch. Not enough to make it like solid. And then tried to do that with the pattern of the way the stitches were laying so it didn't look wonkier than it was going to. And then kind of just forced a buttonhole. It doesn't look amazing, but it looks fine. Especially if it's buttoned, it looks fine. So, if you're also in the pickle where you forgot to make one, Here's a hack for you. Okay, I can't remember where I learned that, so if you know what this technique is or if there's a name for it or something, comment below, let us know. Okay, I think that is everything for today. I'm just doing my little end of the video scan to see what I've inevitably missed. It's like when you're doing dishes and you turn around and there's a pot that you left on the stove. Same thing, there's always a sweater lurking somewhere. Thank you for watching. I am getting ready to make my everything I knit in 2024 video, so I'm super excited about that. But other than that, let me know if there's other things you want to see as we wrap up to the end of the year. I do have one idea that I want to float past you all. It was a little vibe check. So I read a lot. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Sometimes I commute 3, 4, 5 hours to a different city. So I'm a big audiobook girl. In 2024, and actually also in 2023, I read 100 books. I'm speaking a little bit too soon because I have like 2 to go. But I read a lot. And I feel like it's a very wide variety. I'm on Book Talk, I read fantasy, but I also read a lot of like nonfiction, true crime, autobiographies, poetry, what else? Thriller, mystery, love, true crime, I think I said that. There's a wide variety is my point. So I kind of want to do a what would I knit for book characters video, because I think that would be so fun. So let me know if you have book characters that you want to discuss, if you have favorite books that you think I should read in the next year. I just think that would be a really fun video to make. I think it would be fun for me to think about and research into. So, okay, that's my idea. I'm throwing it out. Let me know what you think. Unless you hate it, then keep it to yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Have a happy holiday season. Good luck with gift knitting if you are participating. And we'll see you next time.